The champagne flute slipped from Emma's hand, shattering against the marble floor of their penthouse. But it wasn't the expensive crystal that made her heart stop. It was the photo on her phone. Their 3-year-old daughter Mina, held by masked men. Below the image, a message. The past never forgets, J1. You have 48 hours. Come back to us, or say goodbye to her forever. J1 Beck stood frozen, staring at the screen. 5 years ago, he'd walked away from Korea's most powerful crime family to build a life of integrity with the woman he loved. Together, they'd created a billion-dollar consulting empire. Proof that you could have power without blood, success without fear. They had everything. A thriving business, a beautiful family, a love that had survived every test. Until now. Because in the criminal underworld, no one truly walks away. Your enemies are always watching, always waiting. And when they strike, they go for what you love most. This is the story of how J1 and Emma Beck fought the most dangerous battle of their lives. Not with violence or vengeance, but with the very principles that built their empire. A story about what happens when your dark past comes for your bright future, and you have to prove that love and integrity are stronger than any weapon. Before we dive into this incredible journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and create more stories like this for you. Your support means everything. Now let's see how this power couple faces their greatest challenge. 12 hours earlier, everything had been perfect. Emma had woken up to the sound of laughter drifting from the kitchen. She'd padded out of the bedroom to find J1 attempting to make pancakes while their 3-year-old daughter Mina sat on the counter, giggling at her father's culinary struggles. "Daddy, they're burned again," Mina announced with the brutal honesty only a toddler could manage. J1 held up the slightly charred pancake with mock offense. "This is artisanal cooking, princess. Very sophisticated." Emma leaned against the doorframe, her heart swelling with contentment. "Artisanal burning, you mean?" He turned, and the smile he gave her still made her breath catch after 5 years of marriage. "Good morning, beautiful. I was trying to surprise you with breakfast." The smoke alarm almost succeeded in surprising me, Emma teased, walking over to kiss him. She then pressed a kiss to Mina's forehead. "Good morning, baby girl." Their 1-year-old son, David, babbled from his high chair, waving a plastic spoon demandingly. The kitchen was chaos. Flour on the counters, eggshells in the sink. Their normally immaculate penthouse transformed into a lived-in home. It was perfect. "Big day today," J1 said, finally producing a pancake that looked edible. "Your presentation to the Samsung executives." Emma nodded, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves. "If we land this contract, it'll be our biggest client yet. Sustainable supply chain restructuring for their entire electronics division. You'll be brilliant. You always are." J1 plated the pancakes, then caught her hand. "Remember when we started this company? Just the two of us in a tiny office, trying to prove that ethical business consulting could actually work. And everyone said we were naive." Emma remembered. "That you couldn't build real power without compromising your values. We proved them wrong." He squeezed her hand. 500 employees, offices in 3 countries, and a billion-dollar valuation, all built on integrity. Mina tugged on Emma's sleeve. "Mommy, can we read the princess book tonight?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Which one?" "The one where the princess saves herself," Mina said decisively. Emma and J1 exchanged amused glances. Their daughter had definite opinions about her bedtime stories. That morning had unfolded like any other. J1 dropped Mina at her preschool, an exclusive but warm institution where she was learning Korean, English, and beginning Mandarin. Emma headed to their office building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in Gangnam, with Beck Consulting Group emblazoned across the top floor. The presentation went flawlessly. Emma stood before 12 Samsung executives and walked them through a comprehensive plan to revolutionize their supply chain using sustainable practices. It would save them money while reducing environmental impact. The perfect marriage of profit and principle that their company specialized in. "Mrs. Beck," the senior vice president said when she finished, "this is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. We'll have contracts drawn up by end of week." Emma had called J1 immediately. "We got it. They said yes. His whoop of joy made her laugh. That's my brilliant wife. This calls for celebration. Dinner at our coffee shop tonight. They still went to the small cafe near Seoul National University every week. The place where they'd had their first real conversation 5 years ago, when Emma had been a struggling student and Jaewon had been trying to become someone worthy of her love. It kept them grounded, reminded them of where they'd started. It's a date, Emma agreed. I'll pick up Mina from school. You grab David from your mom's. Perfect. I love you, Emma Beck. I love you too. At 2:47 that afternoon, Emma's phone rang. The preschool director's voice was shaking. Mrs. Beck, I need you to come to the school immediately. Mina, we can't find Mina. The world tilted. What do you mean you can't find her? The children were on the playground for outdoor time. When we called them in, Mina didn't come. We've searched the entire facility, the surrounding area, she's not here. We've called the police. Emma didn't remember the drive to the preschool. One moment she was in her office. The next she was running through the school's front doors, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. Jaewon's car screeched into the parking lot seconds after hers. The director met them with tear-streaked cheeks. I'm so sorry. We don't know how this happened. Our security is supposed to be. Show us the playground, Jaewon said, his voice deadly calm in that way that meant he was barely holding himself together. They searched. Police officers interviewed staff and parents. Other children described playing with Mina, but no one had seen her leave. It was as if she'd simply vanished. Then Emma's phone buzzed. The photo of Mina appeared, their baby girl in a dark room, tears streaming down her face, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The message that followed made Emma's blood turn to ice. The past never forgets, Jaewon. You have 48 hours. Come back to us, or say goodbye to her forever. At the police station, detectives assured them they were doing everything possible. But Emma could see the statistics in their eyes. The first 48 hours were critical, and they had no leads, no witnesses, nothing. Back at their penthouse, with David sleeping in his crib and Emma's mother watching over him with terrified eyes, Jaewon finally broke. He stood at the window overlooking the Han River, his hands clenched into fists. I know who has her, he said quietly. Emma's head snapped up. What? Park Dong-min. He was a rival when I was still in the family business. When I left and Tae-sung took over, Dong-min lost territory, lost face. Jaewon's voice was hollow. He's been waiting for this. Waiting to hurt me. Then we tell the police. The police can't touch him. He's too well-connected, too careful. Jaewon turned, and Emma's breath caught at the look in his eyes. It was a look she hadn't seen in 5 years. Cold, calculating, dangerous. But I can. I make 3 phone calls, and I'll know exactly where she is. 3 more, and Dong-min is dead by morning. No. Emma stood, her voice shaking but firm. That's exactly what he wants. He wants to pull you back into that world, prove you never really changed. They have our daughter. Jaewon's control finally shattered. Our 3-year-old baby is terrified and alone, and I can end this tonight. By becoming a murderer again? By throwing away everything we've built? What good is everything we've built if we lose her? His voice broke. Emma, I can't lose her. I'll do whatever it takes. Emma crossed to him, grabbing his face in both hands. Listen to me. We don't know for certain who has her. If you go in blind, guns blazing, you might get her killed. We're smarter than this, Jaewon. We've built an empire on strategy and intelligence. We use that now. How? How do we strategize against a monster who has our child? We think like you used to think, but we act like who we are now. Emma's hands were shaking, but her voice steadied. You know how these people operate. Use that knowledge. But we do this legally, strategically. We don't compromise who we've become. Jaewon pulled her close, and they held each other in the dark penthouse, both terrified parents trying to be strong when their world was crumbling. 48 hours, he whispered. We have 48 hours to find her and stay true to ourselves. Then we'd better start now, Emma said. By midnight, their penthouse had transformed into a war room. Minho arrived first, Jaewon's former head of security who now served as vice president of security for Beck Consulting Group. He'd been with Jaewon through the darkest days and the transformation that followed. If anyone understood both worlds, it was him. Yuki came next, Emma's best friend, and the company's director of technology. She carried 3 laptops and enough energy drinks to fuel an army. Behind her came James Park, their corporate lawyer, looking exhausted but determined. They gathered around the dining table, now covered with laptops, phones, and printouts of everything they knew so far. The photo was sent from a burner phone, Yuki said, her fingers flying across her keyboard. But I'm running analysis on the image itself. Background noise, lighting, any metadata they might have missed scrubbing. Minho spread out a map of Seoul. If it's Dongmin, and I agree that it probably is, he has 3 main locations. An office building in Gangbuk that's supposedly a legitimate import business, a warehouse in the port district, and a compound in the mountains outside the city. The police are already investigating, Emma said. They'll check those locations. They'll find nothing, Jae-won said flatly. Dongmin's been evading police for 20 years. He'll have her somewhere off the books, somewhere only people in the life would know about. James looked up from his tablet. I've been pulling property records. Companies connected to Park Dongmin, even through shell corporations. There are 14 properties registered. Send me that list, Yuki said. I'll cross-reference with utility usage, see if any show recent spikes that might indicate occupation. Emma's phone buzzed. Another message. This time a video. Her hands shook as she pressed play. Mina's face filled the screen, streaked with tears. Mommy? Daddy? I want to go home. Please come get me. I'm scared. The video cut off after 10 seconds, but it was enough to shred Emma's heart into pieces. She felt Jae-won's hand grip hers so tightly it hurt. A new message appeared. 36 hours left. Midnight tomorrow, Jae-won comes to the old Moonlight Pavilion. Alone. Rejoin the family. Help me reclaim what's mine, or she dies. No police. No tricks. Just you and your decision. The old Moonlight Pavilion, Minho said. That restaurant closed 3 years ago. The building's been abandoned. Jae-won's jaw clenched. He chose it deliberately. That's where I first met Emma. Where everything changed for me. He's making a point. What kind of point? Yuki asked. That the past always catches up. That I can't escape who I was. Jae-won stood abruptly, walking to the window. He wants me to choose between my old life and my family. Prove that love made me weak. Emma joined him at the window. In the reflection, she could see the conflict raging across his face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I go to that meeting. I tell him whatever he wants to hear. Get Mina back. Then what? You're back in that world? You think he'll just let you leave again after you've rejoined? Emma turned him to face her. This isn't just about getting her back, Jae-won. It's about what kind of parents she comes back to. I don't care what kind of parent I am as long as she's alive. Yes, you do. You care deeply. That's why you left that life in the first place. Emma's voice softened. I know you're terrified. I am too. But we can't let fear make us into people our children won't recognize. Behind them, Yuki gasped. I found something. The video, there's background noise. Very faint, but I can enhance it. She worked for several minutes while they all held their breath. Industrial sounds. Specifically, the pattern matches loading docks. Container ships being loaded and unloaded. The port district, Minho said immediately. That narrows it down to maybe a dozen buildings in Dongmin's territory. Can we triangulate more specifically? James asked. Give me an hour, Yuki said, already deep in her analysis. Emma looked at the clock. It's 1 a.m. We have 35 hours. We need rest if we're going to think clearly. I can't sleep, Jae said. Not while she's out there. Then lie down with me. Just for a few hours. We'll think better with some rest. Emma touched his face gently. We're going to find her. But we need to be sharp. In their bedroom, they lay in the dark, neither actually sleeping. Jae-won's arm was around Emma, holding her as if she might disappear too. Tell me about the first time you held her, Emma whispered. When she was born. Jae-won's voice was rough with emotion. The doctor handed her to me, and she was so tiny. I'd held guns, handled weapons, hurt people with these hands. And suddenly I was holding this perfect little person, and all I could think was that I had to be better. For her. You are better. You've been better every single day since you decided to change. What if it's not enough? What if being better doesn't protect her? Being better isn't about protection. It's about being worthy of her love when we get her back. Emma turned to face him in the darkness. And we will get her back. At 6 a.m, Yuki knocked on their door. I've got it. The video analysis matches acoustic patterns from 3 specific dock buildings. 2 are active shipping facilities. The third, she pulled up a photo on her tablet, is an old processing plant. Been abandoned for 5 years, supposedly condemned, but the property is owned by a shell company that traces back to one of Dong Min's known associates. Emma and Jae-won were up immediately, calling Minho and the others back to the penthouse. This is it, Minho said, studying the building schematics he'd pulled up. Has to be. Remote enough that no one hears anything. Close enough to the port for the acoustic match and owned by Dong Min's network. We call the police, Emma said. Give them this information. Jae-won was already reaching for his phone when James held up a hand. Wait. Think this through. If we send police in and Dong Min gets spooked, what happens to Mina? The question hung in the air like a guillotine. We need confirmation before we move, Minho said. Let me do reconnaissance. I can get eyes on the building, see if there's activity. That's too dangerous, Emma protested. It's what I'm trained for. I can be in and out in an hour, get visual confirmation, then we bring in the authorities with solid intelligence. Emma looked at Jae-won, who was staring at the building schematics with an expression she couldn't quite read. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we might not need reconnaissance. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Tae-sung, it's Jae-won. I need to meet you. Now. It's about family. 20 minutes later, they met Tae-sung at a 24-hour cafe in Itaewon. Jae-won's cousin looked exactly like what he was, the current head of the Beck crime family. Expensive suit, dangerous eyes, the kind of presence that made other patrons instinctively move to different tables. Tae-sung and Jae-won hadn't spoken in 2 years. Not since a tense family dinner where Jae-won had made clear he wanted nothing to do with the business. But when Tae-sung saw Emma's face, something in his expression shifted. What happened? Park Dong-min kidnapped my daughter, Jae-won said flatly. Tae-sung's face went cold. When? Yesterday afternoon. He wants me to rejoin the family, help him take back territory from you. He has her in a warehouse in the Port District. Which warehouse? Why? What are you going to do? Tae-sung leaned forward. I'm going to get my niece back and make Dong Min regret being born. You think I'm going to let some washed-up gangster disrespect this family? Use a child as leverage? No killing, Emma said firmly. Both men looked at her in surprise. I mean it. We're not doing this the old way. We find Mina. We involve the authorities. We do this legally. Mrs. Beck, with all respect, legal doesn't always work in my world. Then maybe that's the problem with your world, Emma interrupted. We're not asking you to go soft. We're asking you to be smart. Dong Min is expecting violence. He's expecting Jae-won to come in guns blazing. We do this differently. We have the advantage. Tae-sung studied her for a long moment. You're the one who changed him. I always wondered what kind of woman could make Jae-won walk away from everything. Now I see it. Will you help us? Jae-won asked. Your way would be faster, I know. But Emma's right. If we become what Dong Min is, we've already lost. Tae-sung was quiet, then nodded slowly. I can give you intelligence. Dong Min's routines, his security patterns, weak points in his operations. Information only. What you do with it is your choice. That's all we need, Emma said. Over the next hour, Tae-sung laid out everything he knew about Park Dong Min's operations. The man was desperate, losing territory and respect. He'd been trying to destabilize Tae-sung's leadership for months, hoping to create enough chaos to slip back into power. He's old school, Tae-sung explained. Thinks the only way to prove strength is through violence and fear. You walking away, building a legitimate empire. It made him look weak by comparison. Like maybe there was another option. So this is about ego, Emma said. Everything in this world is about ego. Respect. Face. Tae-sung slid a USB drive across the table. Security camera footage from my network near the port. Time-stamped from yesterday. You might find something useful. Back at the penthouse, Yuki loaded the footage. At 3:47 p.m. the previous day, a black van was captured turning toward the abandoned processing plant. The license plate was partially visible. Got it, Yuki said, running the plate. Registered to another shell company, but this one has a paper trail. The manager is Han Suk-jin, a known associate of Dong Min. So we know where she is, Minho said. The question is how we get her out. Emma looked at the clock. 28 hours left before J1's deadline. We need a plan that doesn't rely on J1 walking into a trap. But I am walking into the trap, J1 said. Everyone turned to look at him. Think about it. Dongmin expects me at the Moonlight Pavilion tomorrow at midnight. He'll have his best people there. Which means the warehouse will have minimal security. Emma finished, understanding. We use the meeting as a distraction. Exactly. I go to the pavilion, keep him occupied. Meanwhile, police raid the warehouse based on all the intelligence we've gathered. That's incredibly dangerous, James said. If something goes wrong at either location, everything about this is dangerous, J1 said. But it's our best shot. Emma shook her head firmly. No, absolutely not. You're not going into that meeting alone. Emma, it has to be me. Dongmin won't show if anyone else comes. Then I'm coming with you. She held up her hand before he could protest. Partners in everything, remember? That's what we promised each other. I'm not letting you walk into danger alone while I sit safely somewhere else. If something happens to both of us, David loses both his parents. Nothing is going to happen to either of us because we're going to be smart about this. Emma turned to the others. We need 2 teams. One for the warehouse rescue, one for the pavilion meeting. We coordinate timing perfectly. When Dongmin is distracted with us, the raid happens. Minho nodded slowly. I can work with Detective Park. He's been on Dongmin's case for years, and he owes me a favor. If we present him with solid evidence, witness testimony from Taesung's network, and real-time surveillance showing Mina's location, he'll move fast. How do we know Dongmin will actually be at the pavilion? Yuki asked. What if he sends people but doesn't show himself? Jaewon's expression was grim. He'll be there. This is personal for him. He wants to see my face when I submit. Wants to savor the victory. Then we give him a show, Emma said. But not the one he's expecting. They spent the next 12 hours preparing. Detective Park was brought into the fold, initially skeptical until Yuki showed him the evidence they'd compiled. The video analysis, the property records, the security footage, testimony from confidential informants in Taesung's organization willing to confirm Dongmin's involvement. This is solid, Detective Park admitted. But we need to be careful. If we spook him before we have eyes on the girl, he could move her or worse. That's why the timing has to be perfect, Emma said. We need him focused entirely on the pavilion meeting. At 8 p.m. the following evening, 4 hours before the deadline, another message came through. A photo of Mina sleeping on a thin mattress, still clutching her stuffed rabbit. The message was brief. 4 hours. Don't be late. Come alone or she dies. Emma felt tears burn behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. Mina looked so small, so vulnerable. But she was alive. They still had time. Jae-won disappeared into their bedroom and emerged wearing a tailored black suit. He looked every inch the crime boss he'd once been. Cold, controlled, dangerous. But when he looked at Emma, his eyes softened. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I can still go alone. And miss the chance to tell Park Dong-min exactly what I think of him? Not a chance. Emma wore a simple black dress and heels, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked like she was going to a business meeting, which in a way, she was. Besides, he's expecting you to come alone and broken. Showing up with your wife, unified and strong, that's already a message. Minho approached with 2 small devices. Earpieces. We'll have constant communication. The moment you confirm Dong-min is at the pavilion, Detective Park's team moves on the warehouse. Yuki will be monitoring everything from the van outside. And if something goes wrong, Jae-won asked. Then Taesung's people are on standby as backup, Minho said. I know you wanted to keep this clean, but your cousin insisted. Family is family, he said. Emma checked her watch. We should go. We want to arrive exactly on time. Not early, not late. Show him we're in control. The drive to the old Moonlight Pavilion was silent. Jae-won kept one hand on the wheel and one hand clasped with Emma's. The restaurant had been abandoned for 3 years, the building dark and imposing against the Seoul skyline. But lights glowed from inside now. Dong-min had clearly prepared for this meeting. Remember, Emma said as they parked. We're here to buy time, nothing more. Keep him talking, keep him focused on you. The rescue team does the rest. If he tries anything, he won't. Not yet. He wants to gloat first. Men like him always do. Emma squeezed his hand. We faced worse than this and survived. Have we? We faced the possibility of never being together at all. We survived your father's disapproval, my visa crisis, building a company from nothing. We can survive this too. They walked to the entrance hand in hand. Two guards stood outside, both armed. They recognized J1 immediately, surprise flickering across their faces when they saw Emma. He said you'd come alone, one guard said. I go where my husband goes, Emma said simply. Are you going to shoot me? I don't think your boss wants that kind of attention. The guards exchanged glances, then opened the door. The interior of the Moonlight Pavilion was exactly as Emma remembered from J1's stories. Elegant, expensive, frozen in time. But now it felt like a tomb. They walked through the main dining room, toward the VIP section in the back. With each step, Emma's heart pounded harder, but she kept her face calm, her spine straight. The VIP room door opened, and there was Park Dongmin. He was smaller than Emma had imagined, perhaps 50 years old, with graying hair and expensive clothes that couldn't quite hide the desperation in his eyes. But what caught her attention immediately was the corner of the room, where Mina sat on a chair, unharmed but terrified, with a guard standing nearby. Mommy, Daddy, Mina's cry shattered Emma's composure for just a moment. The guard put a hand on Mina's shoulder, keeping her seated. Emma felt J1's entire body tense beside her, ready to launch across the room. Not yet, Dong Min said smoothly. First we talk. Then, if J1 is reasonable, the girl goes home safely. Let her go now, J1 said, his voice deadly quiet. Whatever you want from me, she's not part of this. She became part of this when you decided to abandon your family, your legacy, everything you were meant to be. Dongmin gestured to chairs. Sit. Both of you. Though I must say, I'm surprised you brought your wife. Does she know what kind of man you really are, J1? Emma sat, pulling J1 down beside her. Through her earpiece, she heard Minho's voice. Confirmed. Target is at the pavilion. Detective Park's team is moving now. ETA to warehouse. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. They just needed to keep Dongmin talking for 8 minutes. I know exactly what kind of man he is, Emma said clearly. He's a man who had the courage to change, to choose a different path. That's more than you'll ever be. Dongmin's eyes narrowed. Brave words from someone who's never lived in the real world. You think your little business empire, your clean money, your pretty life, you think that's real power? It's real enough that you felt threatened by it, Emma countered. Real enough that you had to kidnap a child to prove you still matter. That sounds like weakness to me, not power. Emma, J1 said quietly, a warning. But Emma was done being afraid. You want J1 back in your world because watching him succeed without you proves that your way isn't the only way. That violence and fear aren't the same as strength. It terrifies you. Dongmin stood abruptly. You have no idea what you're talking about. I've built an empire. An empire that's crumbling, Emma said. We did our research. You've lost 70% of your territory in the last 2 years. Your allies are abandoning you. You're desperate, and desperation makes people stupid. 5 minutes. Minho's voice said in her ear. Keep him engaged. Dongmin's face had gone red with fury. J1, control your wife, or what? J1 leaned back in his chair, and Emma saw the transformation. He wasn't the cold crime boss from his past, but he wasn't just the business consultant either. He was something new, someone who understood both worlds but belonged to neither. She's right. I can see it now. You're not trying to reclaim power. You're trying to prove that I made the wrong choice by leaving. Because if I can be happy, successful, fulfilled without the life, then what does that say about everyone who stayed? It says you're a coward who abandoned his people. It says I found something worth more than fear and blood money. J1 reached over and took Emma's hand. I found purpose, partnership, love. Real power isn't making people afraid of you. It's building something that lasts, something that helps people instead of destroying them. 3 minutes, Minho said. They're in position. Dongmin paced, agitated. Beautiful philosophy. But philosophy doesn't rule the streets. Power does. And I'm offering you a choice. Come back. Help me rebuild, and your daughter goes home. Refuse, and he let the threat hang. And what? Emma asked. You kill a 3-year-old child? That's your grand plan? Even in your world, there are lines. You kill her, and you'll have every crime family in Seoul hunting you. Taesung alone would tear your organization apart. Children are off limits. Everyone knows that. Dongmin's hand moved toward his jacket, and Emma's heart stopped. But he just pulled out a phone. Maybe I don't kill her. Maybe I just make sure she disappears. Sell her to someone far away where you'll never find her. There are people who pay well for pretty little girls. The threat hung in the air like poison. Emma felt rage unlike anything she'd ever experienced flood through her veins. Beside her, Jae-won had gone absolutely still in that terrifying way that meant violence was a heartbeat away. 1 minute, Minho said urgently. Detective Park has visual confirmation. Mina is in the warehouse. They're breaching now. Emma needed to keep Dongmin here. Keep him distracted for just 60 more seconds. She stood, drawing his attention. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do anything. Because you've already lost. Lost. I have your daughter. No, Emma said. You don't. Dongmin's phone rang. He looked at it, frowned, answered. His face went pale. What? When? How many? He looked up at Jae-won and Emma, understanding dawning. You? The warehouse is empty, Emma said. Well, not empty. I imagine Detective Park and his team are finding all sorts of interesting evidence. But Mina? She's safe. She was rescued about 90 seconds ago. It wasn't entirely true yet. Minho was saying, they have her. She's safe. They have her. But Emma needed Dongmin to believe it. Jae-won stood, and his voice was colder than Emma had ever heard it. You made a mistake. You thought I'd come here broken, desperate, ready to submit. But you forgot something important. I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. I don't solve problems with violence anymore. I solve them with intelligence, strategy, and resources you can't even imagine. Dongmin lunged for Mina, but the guard beside her suddenly stepped back, hands raised. Emma realized with a shock that the guard was one of Taesung's people, planted there all along. You think you've won? Dongmin snarled, pulling a gun from his jacket. He aimed it at Jae-won, his hand shaking with rage. I'll kill you right here. If I can't have power, neither can you. Go ahead, Jae-won said calmly. Pull that trigger. There are 15 police officers surrounding this building right now. Detective Park has enough evidence to put you away for 20 years even without adding murder to the list. Every phone call you've made, every text message, every financial transaction, we documented all of it. Emma's heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. We've been building a case against you for the last 36 hours. While you were planning your grand moment of triumph, we were systematically dismantling your entire operation. Your associates are being arrested as we speak. Your accounts are frozen. Your properties are being seized. It's over. The door burst open and Detective Park entered with 4 officers, weapons drawn. Park Dongmin, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, and about 15 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you. Dongmin's gun wavered. For a moment, Emma thought he might actually shoot, might take Jae-won down with him out of pure spite. But then his shoulders sagged, and the weapon clattered to the floor. This isn't over, he said as officers cuffed him. You think you've escaped? You think you can just walk away from what you are? The blood on your hands doesn't wash off, Jae-won. You'll always be one of us. Jae-won walked over to Mina, who was crying and reaching for him. He scooped her up, holding her tight against his chest. You're wrong. I was one of you. Past tense. But that's not who I am anymore. Emma showed me I could choose differently. And that choice, every single day, is what defines me now. Emma joined them, wrapping her arms around both Jae-won and Mina. Their daughter was sobbing, clutching her father's neck. I want to go home. I want David. I want to go home. We're going home, baby. Emma said, tears finally streaming down her face. We're all going home. Detective Park approached them. We'll need statements, but that can wait until tomorrow. Take your daughter home. The medics outside should check her over first, but she appears physically unharmed. Outside the Moonlight Pavilion, the street was filled with police vehicles, their lights painting the night in red and blue. Minho was waiting by their car, and when he saw Mina safe in Jae-won's arms, his stern expression cracked into relief. The warehouse team reports complete success, he said. They found extensive evidence of Dongmin's operations. This will take down most of his network. Yuki ran up and hugged Emma fiercely. You were incredible in there. I was listening to everything. When you told him he'd already lost, God, that was perfect. A black car pulled up, and Taesung stepped out. He approached slowly, his eyes on Mina. Is she all right? Thanks to you, Jae-won said. Your intelligence, your people inside. We couldn't have done this without you. Taesung reached out and gently touched Mina's hair. She'd stopped crying now, exhausted and clinging to her father. She looks like you did at that age. Stubborn chin. He looked at Jae-won. I know we don't agree on much. I know you hate what I do, what the family is. But this, what you did tonight, maybe you're not as far from us as you think. No, Emma said firmly. What we did tonight proves exactly how different we are. We didn't solve this with violence or fear. We used intelligence, legal channels, and strategy. We won because we stayed true to our principles, not because we abandoned them. Taesung studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is another way. He turned to leave, then paused. The offer stands, by the way. If any of my people want to leave the life, want to go legitimate, I won't stop them. And I know where to send them for help. After he drove away, Emma and Jae-won got into their car with Mina. The drive home was quiet except for Mina's occasional sniffles. She'd fallen asleep halfway there, exhausted from her ordeal, her small hand clutching Emma's fingers. At the penthouse, Emma's mother met them at the door with David in her arms. The baby reached for Emma with a happy babble, oblivious to the trauma of the past 2 days. She's really okay? Emma's mother asked, tears in her eyes. She will be, Jae-won said. We'll make sure of it. They put both children to bed. Mina in her own room with a night light and the door open, David in his crib. Emma's mother said goodnight and headed to the guest room, giving them privacy. In their bedroom, Emma and Jae-won collapsed onto the bed, the adrenaline finally draining away and leaving them hollow and shaking. I almost became that person again, Jae-won said into the darkness. When he threatened to sell her, to make her disappear, I wanted to kill him. Not arrest him, not bring him to justice. Kill him with my bare hands. But you didn't, Emma said. You felt the impulse, but you didn't act on it. That's what matters. What if next time I can't control it? What if there's a situation where being better, doing the right thing, isn't enough? Emma rolled over to face him. Then we deal with that when it comes. But tonight, we proved something important. We proved that we can protect our family without compromising who we are. That our way works. Your way, Jae-won corrected gently. You're the one who kept me grounded. Who reminded me that becoming a monster to fight monsters means everyone loses. Our way, Emma insisted. We're partners. Your knowledge of how Dongmin thought, how that world operates, that was crucial. My insistence on staying legal, on using strategy instead of force, that was crucial too. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. They lay in silence for a while, just breathing, being alive, and together. I want to expand the Second Chances program, Jae-won said suddenly. The initiative we started last year, helping former criminals transition to legitimate work. I want to make it our company's primary focus. Emma propped herself up on one elbow. Tell me more. Dongmin said I'd always be one of them. That the blood doesn't wash off. But he's wrong. People can change if they're given real opportunity, real support. I want to prove that on a larger scale. Create pathways out of that life for anyone who wants them. That would require significant resources, Emma said, but she was smiling. We'd need to hire specialists, create training programs, establish partnerships with businesses willing to give people second chances. The Samsung contract you just landed will give us the capital. And I think there are other companies who'd be interested in corporate social responsibility programs like this. It could become a whole division of our business. Helping people while being profitable. The perfect marriage of principle and pragmatism. Emma kissed him softly. I love it. I love you. Even when you're planning to completely restructure our company at 2 in the morning after the most traumatic day of our lives. Especially then, Jae-won said. Because that's who we are. We take the darkness and find a way to create light from it. The next morning, Mina woke up screaming from a nightmare. Emma and Jae-won rushed to her room to find her sitting up in bed, crying for them. The bad men, she sobbed. They're going to take me again. Jae-won climbed into bed beside her, pulling her onto his lap. No one is ever taking you again. The bad men are in jail. They can't hurt you. Promise. I promise. And you know what? Daddy and Mommy are going to make sure other kids never get hurt like that either. We're going to help people be better, so there are fewer bad men in the world. How? Emma sat on the other side of Mina. By showing them that they have choices, that they can choose to be good instead of bad, just like Daddy chose to be good. Mina looked up at J1 with her big, serious eyes. You were bad before. I made bad choices, J1 said carefully. I hurt people. But then I met Mommy, and she showed me I could be better. And every day since then, I've tried to make good choices instead. And now you help people? Now we help people. As a family. Over the following weeks, they took Mina to a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. The nightmares gradually became less frequent. Mina started smiling again, playing with her brother, acting like the happy 3-year-old she was supposed to be. But Emma and J1 also noticed changes. Mina was more clingy now, afraid when they left her sight. She asked more questions about where they were going, when they'd be back. The therapist said it was normal. That trust took time to rebuild, even with the people you loved most. 1 month after the kidnapping, Emma and J1 held a press conference announcing the expansion of their Second Chances initiative. They didn't mention what had happened to Mina. That remained private. But they spoke passionately about rehabilitation, redemption, and creating pathways out of crime. We believe that people are defined not by their worst moments, but by their choice to become better, Emma said to the assembled reporters. Our company is committing $50 million over the next 5 years to create comprehensive programs helping former criminals transition to legitimate careers. The response was overwhelming. Other companies reached out wanting to partner. Former gang members contacted them seeking help. Universities asked them to speak about criminal justice reform and corporate social responsibility. 3 months after the kidnapping, J1 came home with an unexpected proposal. Emma was in the kitchen attempting to teach Mina how to make kimchi, a messy, chaotic endeavor that had both of them covered in red pepper flakes. I think we need a vacation, J1 announced. A real one. Somewhere far from Seoul, far from everything that happened. Just the 4 of us. Emma looked up from the cutting board. A vacation? J1, we're in the middle of launching the Second Chances program. We have the Samsung implementation starting next month. Minho and Yuki can handle things for 2 weeks. We've built a strong team. It's time we trusted them to run things without us hovering. He crouched down to Mina's level. What do you think, princess? Want to go to the beach? Build sandcastles? See the ocean? Mina's face lit up. Really? Can we bring David? Of course. It'll be a family adventure. Emma saw the plea in J1's eyes. He was right. They needed this. They'd been so focused on work, on proving that good could triumph over evil, that they'd forgotten to simply be a family. Where were you thinking? She asked. Santorini, Greece. White buildings, blue water, nothing but sunshine and time together. 2 weeks later, they stood on a terrace overlooking the Aegean Sea. The whitewashed buildings of Santorini cascaded down the cliffs like a painting. Mina squealed with delight at the sight of the bright blue-domed churches, while David babbled happily in Emma's arms. It's beautiful, Emma breathed. I can't believe we're actually here. That first evening, after the children were asleep in the villa they'd rented, Emma and J1 sat on the terrace with glasses of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Do you remember our first date? J1 asked. At that coffee shop near the university? You were so nervous. Your hands were shaking when you picked up your cup. I'd faced down rival gangs without flinching, but sitting across from you terrified me. He smiled at the memory. You were so fierce, so certain of who you were and what you wanted. I'd never met anyone like you. And you were trying so hard to be normal, to prove you could be someone other than what you'd been born to be. Emma leaned against his shoulder. Look at us now, running a billion-dollar company, raising 2 beautiful children, actually making a difference in the world. We almost lost it all, J1 said quietly. When Dongmin took Mina, I realized how fragile everything is, how quickly it could all disappear. But it didn't. We fought for it, and we won. And we did it the right way. Over the next 2 weeks, they simply existed as a family. Mornings were spent at the beach, where Mina learned to build elaborate sandcastles while David dug holes and ate sand despite their best efforts to stop him. Afternoons were quiet time, naps and books, and the simple pleasure of being together without schedules or demands. One evening, They took a sunset cruise around the island. The boat was small, intimate, with just their family and the captain. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting everything in gold, Mina tugged on Emma's sleeve. Mommy, are the bad men really gone forever? Emma's heart clenched. The therapist had said Mina would process the trauma in waves, that questions would come unexpectedly. Yes, baby. They're in jail. They can't hurt you or anyone else. But Daddy said there are always bad people. That's why you help them be good. That's true. There will always be people who make bad choices. But there will also always be people like Daddy and me who work to make things better. And when you grow up, you can help too. Mina considered this seriously. I want to help, but I don't want to be scared. J1 knelt down beside her. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared but doing the right thing anyway. You were so brave when those men took you. You remembered everything we taught you about staying calm and trusting that we'd find you. I knew you'd come, Mina said simply. You always come when I need you. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Such simple faith, such absolute trust. It was humbling and terrifying in equal measure. On their last night in Santorini, after both children were asleep, Emma and J1 walked along the beach under a sky full of stars. The sand was cool beneath their bare feet, the sound of waves a gentle rhythm. I've been thinking about something, Emma said. When we get back to Seoul, I want to testify. J1 stopped walking. Testify? About what? Dongmin's trial is coming up. The prosecution asked if we'd be willing to give victim impact statements. I want to do it. I want to look him in the face and tell him exactly what he put our family through. What he put Mina through. Emma, you don't have to do that. We have enough evidence to convict him without. I know I don't have to. I want to. She turned to face him in the moonlight. He tried to break us. Tried to prove that your past would always define you. That we couldn't really escape. I want him to see that he failed. That we're stronger now than we were before. J1 searched her face. Are you sure? It won't be easy, reliving all of that. Nothing worth doing is easy. You taught me that. She smiled. Well, actually, I taught you that. But the point stands. He laughed, pulling her close. What would I do without you? Probably burn a lot more food and make significantly worse business decisions. They stood there for a long time, holding each other as the waves whispered against the shore. Two people who'd found their way to each other across impossible distances and built something real, something lasting. Back in Seoul, they threw themselves into the Second Chances program with renewed energy. The first cohort of participants, 15 former gang members, drug dealers, and petty criminals, started their training program. Emma and J1 had designed a comprehensive 6-month curriculum covering everything from basic job skills to financial literacy to conflict resolution. This is J1 Beck, Emma said to the group on the first day. He's going to share his story with you. J1 stood before them. These men and women who reminded him so much of who he'd been. Lost, angry, convinced that crime was their only option. I was born into the criminal world, he began. My father was a crime boss, my cousins and uncles all part of the organization. From the time I could walk, I was being groomed to take over. I thought that was my destiny, that I had no choice. He talked about the violence he'd witnessed and participated in, the fear he'd inspired, the hollow emptiness of power built on intimidation. He didn't sugarcoat or excuse any of it. Then I met someone who saw me differently, who looked past the reputation and the fear and saw potential I didn't know existed. She challenged me to ask myself who I wanted to be, not who I was expected to be. Emma listened from the back of the room, remembering that scared woman in the restaurant uniform who'd refused to be intimidated by a crime boss. How far they'd both come. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done, J1 continued. I lost family members who couldn't understand my choice. I faced threats and judgment and 1,000 moments of doubt. But I also gained something I never had before, freedom. The freedom to build a life based on my own values, to be proud of what I do, to look my children in the eye without shame. One of the participants, a young man covered in gang tattoos, raised his hand. But you had money, connections, education. Most of us don't have that. How are we supposed to start over with nothing? You don't have nothing, Emma interjected, moving to stand beside J1. You have the desire to change. That's the most important thing. Everything else, the skills, the opportunities, the support we can provide. But the decision to be different has to come from you. Over the following months, they watched the transformation. Some participants struggled, old habits and associations pulling them back, but others thrived. A former enforcer became a security consultant, using his knowledge of criminal tactics to help businesses protect themselves legally. A woman who'd run a loan sharking operation started a legitimate micro-lending nonprofit. A drug dealer went back to school and became a substance abuse counselor. Each success felt like vindication, proof that change was possible, that people weren't defined by their worst moments. Dongmin's trial took place 6 months after the kidnapping. The courthouse was packed with media, curious onlookers, and family members of his other victims. Emma sat in the front row with Jae-won, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When it was time for victim impact statements, Emma approached the stand. Dongmin sat at the defendant's table, looking smaller than she remembered, diminished by months in jail and the weight of evidence against him. "You took my daughter," Emma said, her voice steady and clear. "You terrorized a 3-year-old child because you couldn't accept that someone had chosen a different path than you. You thought that by hurting my family, you could prove that my husband's redemption was false, that people like him could never really change." She paused, making sure Dongmin was looking at her. "But you were wrong. If anything, what you did proved the opposite. We could have responded with violence. My husband knew people who would have killed you without hesitation. But we chose differently. We used the law, strategy, and intelligence to bring you to justice. And in doing so, we proved that there is another way." Dongmin's expression was unreadable, but Emma saw something flicker in his eyes. Anger, maybe. Or possibly, just possibly, the first stirrings of understanding. "My daughter still has nightmares because of you," Emma continued. "She's afraid of the dark, afraid of strangers, afraid that the bad men will come back. It breaks my heart every time she wakes up crying. But do you know what else she does? She talks about wanting to help people when she grows up, about wanting to make the world better. You tried to break her, and instead, you created someone who will spend her life fighting against people like you." She looked directly at him. "I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. But I also don't hate you, because hate requires caring, and you're not worth that emotion. You're just a cautionary tale, a man who chose fear and violence over growth and change, and lost everything because of it." The judge sentenced Park Dong-min to 23 years in prison. As the bailiffs led him away, he looked back at Jae-won one last time. There was no defiance in his eyes anymore, just a hollow emptiness that spoke of a man who'd finally realized how much he'd lost. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Emma and Jae-won, shouting questions about their testimony, their company, their family. But they simply held hands and walked to their car, united and unshaken. That evening, they had a family dinner at home. Emma, Jae-won, Mina, David, and Emma's mother who'd flown in for the trial. It was loud and chaotic, with David throwing rice and Mina telling elaborate stories about her imaginary friend, who was apparently a dragon named Mr. Sparkles. "Mr. Sparkles says bad people can learn to be good if they really try," Mina announced seriously. "Like Daddy did." Emma's mother looked at Jae-won with warmth in her eyes. "Mr. Sparkles sounds very wise." After dinner, once the children were in bed and Emma's mother had retired to the guest room, Emma found Jae-won standing on their terrace, looking out over the city lights of Seoul. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "About how different my life would be if I'd never met you. If you hadn't walked into that VIP room 5 years ago and refused to be impressed by power or money or fear, you would have figured it out eventually. You're a good man, Jae-won. You always were, underneath everything else." "I'm not sure that's true. I think I was becoming exactly what my father wanted, cold, calculating, ruthless. You saved me from that." Emma moved to stand beside him. "We saved each other. I was so focused on being independent, on never needing anyone, that I was closing myself off from real connection. You taught me that letting someone help isn't weakness. That partnership makes us stronger, not weaker." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with life below them. "The Second Chances program is expanding faster than we anticipated," Jae-won said. 3 more companies want to partner with us. We're going to need to hire additional staff, maybe open regional offices. I saw the proposals. It's incredible, really. Who would have thought that helping former criminals would become such a successful business model? People want to believe in redemption. They want to believe change is possible. He turned to face her. We're proof that it is. Over the next year, their lives settled into a new rhythm. The Second Chances program grew to serve over 200 participants annually, with a 78% success rate, meaning nearly 4 out of 5 people who completed the program stayed out of trouble and found legitimate employment. Mina started kindergarten, a bright, curious child who asked endless questions and announced she wanted to be either a doctor or a superhero when she grew up. Her nightmares had become rare, occurring only occasionally when something triggered a memory. But she was healing, growing stronger every day. David took his first real steps, said his first words, and developed a personality that was equal parts stubborn determination and infectious joy. He adored his big sister and followed her everywhere, much to Mina's alternating delight and annoyance. Emma and J1 made it a point to maintain their weekly date nights at the small cafe near Seoul National University. Sometimes they talked about business, sometimes about the children, sometimes about nothing important at all. But those hours together, just the two of them, kept them connected amid the chaos of running a company and raising a family. One evening, 2 years after Dongmin's imprisonment, they received an unexpected letter. It was from Dongmin himself, forwarded through his lawyer. Emma held the envelope, uncertain whether to open it. What do you think he wants? Only one way to find out, J1 said. The letter was brief and handwritten. Mr. and Mrs. Beck, I don't expect forgiveness, nor am I asking for it. But I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I spent my whole life believing that power came from fear and control. Watching my empire collapse while yours grew made me angry because it challenged everything I thought I knew. I took your daughter to prove I was still powerful, still relevant. Instead, I proved I was pathetic. Prison has given me perspective I should have found years ago. I've been participating in educational programs, anger management, even started teaching other inmates to read. It's not redemption. Nothing can undo what I've done. But maybe it's a start. I know you've created a program helping people like me. People who want to change but don't know how. When I get out in 20 years, if the offer still stands, I'd like to be part of it. Not as a participant, but as someone who can show others what happens when you choose pride over growth. Thank you for showing me there was another way, even if I learned it too late. Park Dongmin. Emma read the letter twice, emotions swirling through her. Anger at what he'd done. Skepticism about whether his change was real. But also, reluctantly, hope. What do you think? She asked J1. He was quiet for a long moment. I think people can change at any age, in any circumstance, if they truly want to. I also think it's not our job to decide if his change is genuine. Time will tell. Should we respond? Maybe. Tell him we're glad he's finding a better path. That the offer will be there if he proves himself over the years. But no promises beyond that. Emma nodded. It felt right. Acknowledging his effort without absolving his actions. Leaving the door open without guaranteeing anything. 3 years after the kidnapping, Beck Consulting Group was featured on the cover of Forbes Asia. The headline read, Building an Empire on Second Chances, How Emma and J1 Beck Revolutionized Corporate Social Responsibility. The article detailed their journey, J1's past, their meeting, the company they'd built, the kidnapping and how they'd handled it, and the Second Chances program that had become their legacy. They'd been reluctant to share Mina's story, but ultimately decided that transparency about their struggles made their message more powerful. Mina, now 6 years old, saw the magazine and asked to read the article. Emma helped her through the parts she could understand, simplifying the complex business language. Mommy, it says here that Daddy used to be a bad guy, Mina said, pointing at a paragraph. He used to make bad choices, Emma corrected gently. There's a difference. People aren't good or bad, they're complex. They make choices that help people or hurt people. Daddy chose to start making better choices. Because of you? Because of himself. I just helped him see that he had the choice. Mina thought about this seriously. When I grow up, I want to help people make good choices too. Emma hugged her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I think you'll be amazing at it. That summer, they took another family vacation, this time to Jeju Island, keeping things closer to home. They rented a beach house and spent lazy days building sandcastles, flying kites, and teaching David to swim. Mina had become obsessed with marine biology and spent hours examining tide pools, cataloging every creature she found. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean and the children played in the shallow waves, Emma and J1 sat together on the sand. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked. "Walking away from all that power? Sometimes I wonder if I was selfish, asking you to give up so much. You never asked me to give up anything. You just showed me I had more to gain by choosing differently." J1 took her hand, threading their fingers together. "Every single day, I wake up and look at you, at our children, at what we've built together, and I'm grateful. Not because life is easy or perfect, but because it's real. It's mine. Ours. Ours," Emma echoed, leaning her head on his shoulder. Mina ran up to them, dripping wet and grinning. "Daddy, come see. David and I found a starfish." J1 let her pull him up, and Emma watched them race to the water's edge where David was squatting by a tide pool, poking at something with intense concentration. Her family. Her beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect family. She thought about the frightened student she'd been 5 years ago, working 3 jobs and trusting no one. About the cold crime boss J1 had been, convinced that power and fear were the only currencies that mattered. They'd both been so lost in their own ways, building walls to keep the world out. And then they'd found each other. Not in some fairy tale moment of instant transformation, but through struggle and choice and the daily decision to be better than they'd been the day before. They'd faced darkness together, both the darkness of J1's past and the darkness that came for their daughter, and emerged stronger, more committed to building light. The Second Chances program had helped hundreds of people find new paths. Their company had proven that profit and principle weren't mutually exclusive. But more than any of that, they'd created a family built on love, respect, and the understanding that people could always choose to be better. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky exploded in shades of orange and pink, Emma joined her family at the water's edge. J1 wrapped an arm around her waist. Mina held up the starfish for her inspection. David splashed in the shallow water, laughing at nothing and everything. This was power, Emma thought. Not the kind that came from fear or money or control. The kind that came from love, from choosing each other every day, from building something that would last long after they were gone. The kind of power that could never be taken away. J1 and Emma Beck's story teaches us that our past doesn't have to define our future. It shows us that true strength isn't about dominance or control, but about having the courage to change when change is hard. They prove that you can build real power through integrity, that success doesn't require compromising your values, and that the strongest partnerships are built on equality and mutual respect. Their journey reminds us that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to choose it, that love empowers us to become better versions of ourselves, and that the greatest legacy we can leave is showing others that change is possible. When darkness comes, and it will come, we don't have to become monsters to fight it. We can stay true to who we are and still emerge victorious. Most importantly, Emma and J1 showed us that family, integrity, and purpose are worth more than any empire built on fear. That helping others find their own path to redemption creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. And that every single day, we have the power to choose who we want to be. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart or made you think differently about redemption and second chances, please give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support helps us continue creating content that reminds us all of the better angels of our nature. Until next time, remember, you are not defined by your worst moments, but by your choice to become better. Keep choosing love, integrity, and courage,